What's going on, everybody, and welcome into Hawg Hoops Live. I'm your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me over at HawgSports.com with Trey Biddy, Danny West, and Andrew Ellis. Arkansas basketball is hanging out uncomfortably close to the bubble, but it's starting to feel like the Hogs are hitting their stride here for the stretch run. We're going to discuss the progress the Razorbacks have made the last couple weeks here and take a look at what lies ahead in the month of February, which, quite frankly, has been a month dominated by Eric Musselman. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, you know all the ways at this point that you can watch and listen to the show. Be sure to throw us a like, a thumbs up, a 5-star review, subscribe. All those things really do help us out in terms of expanding our reach and getting out there to all the Razorback fans, so we certainly do appreciate that. Feels good to be back. Real good to be back. No show, obviously, last week. I apologize for that. I got home from that LSU game, that snow game in Fayetteville, with no electricity, and that was the case for me for more than 48 hours. So naturally, I couldn't fire up the show here in the office. For the record, I was gutting it out, old school style, here in the dark. But, when the wife and the dog start shivering a little bit, we booked it over to a hotel. But at any rate, we're back in the saddle now, and really much has happened since the last show. Me and Andrew Ellis took a trip to Waco for the game at Baylor, the SEC Big 12 Challenge that, quite frankly, I feel like Arkansas should have won. I did a live reaction from there, so you can check that out. But I'm not going to dive too deep into that particular game, but I do want to kind of set up the rest of the show here by pointing out really 3 things that stood out to me from that experience. Number one, listen, at some point Arkansas is going to have to overcome it and finish because it's part of life on the road. But yes, I think officiating impacted that game at Baylor. I do. Number 2, despite what was, an emotional and a frustrating loss, I said afterwards that it felt different than the others. The progress showed, I thought, for Arkansas, even though they weren't rewarded with the results. It just felt a little bit different. And number 3, man, Arkansas really left Waco banged up without much time to recover, before being back on the floor again. They're down in Texas. That's on a Saturday. They have to travel home. They play on Tuesday. That was an absolutely massive win over Texas A&M Tuesday night. Huge. We'll talk about why in a minute, but first let's talk about the game itself just for a couple minutes here. Listen, I'm not going to lie. I was worried about this one. I was worried about it before the season started because of the quick turnaround. And it's just, man, for whatever reason, it's just been a weird matchup with Texas A&M. Between Muss and Buzz Williams. I don't know what it is, but it's just been a weird matchup, and I was damn sure worried about it after Arkansas lost that game at Baylor. They kind of limped out of Waco. Meanwhile, Texas A&M, they were red hot, man. I know early in the season, people were poking fun at them. They lost to Murray State. They lost to Wofford at home, kind of got beat up on by Colorado. They struggled out of the gates, but I know on this show when we were doing, just kind of taking stock on the SEC, I kept saying, I think they're going to be playing pretty good ball at some point here. It just seemed like it was Buzz's most talented team. I do think he's a good coach. And man, they really figured it out. They'd won 9 out of 10 coming into that game. They just punked Auburn on the road. That snapped. Auburn had the longest home winning streak in the country at 28 games. We saw Arkansas struggle down there. Texas A&M went and kicked their tail, beat them by 16. So that was a confident group, who came in with a little bit of swagger on the road. And look, it was an incredibly gritty, I think is the word for it, a gritty effort by Arkansas. 81-70 win. 81-70. That's probably like 15 to 20 points more than I expected from either team. To be honest with you, in that game, cool. There were a lot of free throws in this one, which I expected, I think, with 2, kind of foul-happy teams that also draw a ton of FTAs. But really, I thought it was an enjoyable watch overall because it wasn't the kind of whistle-happy crap every other possession that we've seen recently. There was actually a flow and a rhythm to the basketball game. So I know, people complain about the officiating for different reasons. For me, I just want to watch good basketball, man. If I wanted to, watch a free throw competition, I go sit at practice and watch them shoot free throws at the end. I want to see them hoop, man. And so when you're able to get up and down the floor for a few minutes without constant stoppages and play, man, it's just better to watch. And so from that standpoint, I enjoyed it. The first half was awesome until about the last 3 minutes, and then obviously down the stretch when A&M had to foul, there were some breaks there, but overall I thought there was a good flow to the game, so that was cool. But man, Arkansas had to dig deep. I thought they showed a lot of toughness, and you could really tell how much appreciation that Eric Musselman has in his team right now, because they're going through it. Anthony Black was a game-time decision with his knee. He knocked knees hard in that Baylor game. They didn't know if he was going to be able to come back in for that one, and he did. They didn't know if he was going to be able to play at all against Texas A&M, and he kind of gutted it out. The dude was in the training room getting rehab until 10 o'clock the night before the game, and he played 38 minutes. So, pretty gritty effort there from AB. Makel Mitchell. We were told that he might miss a week or two with that foot injury that he had. I guess maybe it was the Ole Miss game. I think it was the Ole Miss game. And he came back for the Baylor game. He's still not 100%. But he played big minutes, started against Texas A&M. Jalen Graham has a sore Achilles. We just talked to Muss earlier today. He said the day before that A&M game, Jalen Graham was in an MRI machine getting that thing checked out. So clearly it's bothering him. Ricky Council's had a bad back, a stiff back that he's been playing through. So really, you're already a little bit shorthanded there, right? With the obvious guys being out, but with 4 key players there who were banged up, man, they were all critical to the win. That's toughness, man. So I think that's a good sign for this Razorback team. AB, he played 38 minutes, 11 points, 7 assists. You could tell it was impacting him a little bit. I think he only took 4 shots from the field, but he got to the free throw line 9 times. A few turnovers, but that 7 assist number, that's good. That's high. He did a good job defensively too. Makel, listen, oh man, am I on the Makel Mitchell train? First of all, I got to credit Andrew Ellis for this, because he's been on the Makel. He's like the conductor of the Makel Mitchell train. He texts us about it before every game. But man, what a breakout performance on his birthday, nonetheless. Him and his brother, obviously twins, but their 23rd birthday, Makel starts, and he flirted with a triple-double. 9 points, 13 rebounds, 7 blocked shots. Are you kidding me? He was an absolute eraser around the rim. I think Arkansas may have found its anchor inside, which is huge, because you've got some really good post presences coming up, down the stretch of the schedule here. And you need a guy like Makel to be in there and be a rim protector. I thought he did a phenomenal job. That's a big development for Arkansas. We talked about Graham. Listen, he only played 12 minutes against A&M. He had a couple turnovers there, but look, he went on a personal 5-0 run, that kind of extended things for Arkansas. So he left his mark in this game. He's starting to turn the corner. I think the staff is starting to find more trust in him. You're seeing him give more effort and pay more attention, more focus maybe is a better word for it, on the defensive end of the floor. All encouraging signs. Maybe this group is starting to figure out who they are, what their identity is, how they can master their own roles. Ricky Council, we mentioned him. He had been struggling for a while there. He had a breakout performance scoring-wise against Baylor. He kind of doubled down on it. He was only 6 of 16 from the floor, but he was really cooking in the first half against A&M. He had 19 points. And look, that dunk. Woo. Man, rock the cradle with the reverse dunk, in a game. That's a ballsy move to do that in a game. But, if I could jump like Ricky Council, I'd try to do the same thing. I would put that dunk as just a slight notch below, what Trevin Brazile did to that poor kid from South Dakota State early in the year in terms of the best dunks of the season. But that was awesome. Yeah, and we talk about those 4 guys who were hurt and made such a big impact, but they weren't the only guys, right? Who made their mark on this game. Devo Davis, man, and yes, I saw his turnovers that were costly there at times, but I also saw him like single-handedly force Texas A&M to extend its defense, which opens up so much offensively for Arkansas. How did he do that? He's become like a sniper from 3 out of nowhere. He buried a career-high 4 3-pointers in this game against Texas A&M, and he continues to be red hot from deep for Arkansas. His emergence as a 3-point shooter has been huge for this team because they just haven't had that consistency. And we've seen how it impacts the way teams defend Arkansas. They just zone you to death. They close off the driving lanes and just makes things get clunky for the Razorbacks. But now, you have to respect what Devo's been doing of late. And just one guy can force a team to extend the defense and respect you from the perimeter a little bit. And it just opens up those lanes for other guys to drive and attack and find gaps. So it's no coincidence that the offense has started to look a lot better, have more flow, and it coincides with what Devo's doing as a shooter. Been huge for the team. I think Jordan Walsh deserves a shout out from this game. He came off the bench because Arkansas decided to go big. Texas A&M starts two big guys in Coleman and Marble, more of a traditional look. So Arkansas went with the twins there. I'm really impressed with Jordan Walsh because, leading up to the game, he thought that he was going to start because they weren't sure what they were going to be able to get out of Anthony Black. Maybe he finds out a couple hours before tip-off that he's coming off the bench. But, I thought he responded really well when he subbed in there. And he didn't play the first 10 minutes of the game either. It's not like he was the sixth man. That was Graham. So I think it was like the 9-minute mark or maybe a little before that when Jordan Walsh actually checked in. But he asserted himself into the game right away. And he didn't get in foul trouble, which is an entirely different conversation. But he looked good. He didn't pout. He didn't lose focus. He subs in, plays a great game, had 12 points. He was aggressive on the offensive glass. He stroked a three for the Razorbacks. So, hey, kudos to him. He's one of 4 guys who scored in double figures for the Hogs in that game. So, look, it wasn't a perfect performance. Offensively, 17 turnovers ain't it. 12 from the starting backcourt is problematic. Free throws are still an issue. I think they left, 8 or 9 on the board there, shot under 70%. So, a lot of things to work on, but they scored 81 points. They shot it well, 50% from the field. And man, it just looked better. Like I said, the spacing was present. A lot more active with their cutters off ball. There was better ball movement, almost too good at times with some of the extra passes they make, instead of taking a layup maybe. But hey, they got out and ran in transition quite a bit. So I thought Arkansas was solid. 6 of 18 from 3. You'll take 6 makes on 33.3% shooting from 3 with this group. Absolutely. Defensively, I thought Arkansas was almost tremendous, right? I mean, they could have had some more steals. I think they only forced 8 turnovers. But, man, they really contested at a high level. They blocked 13 shots. 13 block shots. 10 of them were between the twins there. The Aggies were 15 of 39 on layups. So they missed 24 shots around the rim. And you can give the Twins a lot of credit for that. And just Arkansas's length overall. That's the one thing they had. If you think about the A&M guards, Wade Taylor, Radford, those are explosive players, but they're not that tall. And when you've got a 6'6" guy in Council, you've got a 6'7" in Anthony Black. Devo, he's 6'3", 6'4", but he's got that length. Man, that stuff is just disruptive. So it's kind of wild, if you look at the final stats from that game, and then we'll move on. But, Texas A&M was +9 in turnover margin against Arkansas. They had 24 extra possessions because they got 24 offensive rebounds, which is crazy. So what that means is the Aggies had 20 more shots on goal than Arkansas in this game. They took 20 more shots than Arkansas. They lost by 11. That's nuts. How does that happen? Well, the Hogs didn't get killed on those second chance opportunities that Texas A&M had because they contested everything in there. They didn't get lit up from 3, right? Arkansas only gave up 4 3-pointers, and they shot 16% higher from the field. Arkansas held Texas A&M to 34% shooting. They shot 50% themselves. So, yeah, Texas A&M took 20 more shots in the game, but they got clamped. They shot 20 more. Arkansas made 2 more, and that's what counts. So I thought it was a big victory, and quite honestly, I feel like this is one of the biggest swing games of the season for Arkansas. If you win that game, you kind of recapture that momentum because they were rolling pretty good going into that Baylor game, right? You had a couple feel-good wins, get-right games at home. Then you lose that tough one at Baylor, even though you played well, and so it's kind of a big point there where you can kind of recapture that momentum. You got a 3-game winning streak at that point going in league play. Or, you lose and things start to get dicey there real quick because, the Hogs were, or I guess kind of are slipping a little bit, which is interesting. The metrics for this team are still strong, but you can tell the doubt has started to kind of creep in with, the people who, the bracketologists or whatever. You could tell, man, like they're kind of getting close to that bubble. There's some reputable bracketologists there that are sending Arkansas to Dayton for that first four for those playing games. That's gross, right? So, the Hogs need some quality wins. I think a double-digit quad 2 victory over, an A&M team that I think is a potential tournament team, that adds a little seasoning to the beef that Arkansas needs. So, job well done. And it was in Bud Walton, which I have two things to say about this. One, it just sucks for Arkansas and Muss and the team that you've had two SEC home games here that have been impacted by winter weather. First of all, I hope it's still kind of nasty here in Fayetteville. It's getting better. I hope everybody in Central Arkansas and on down is doing okay. I think it was worse down there, but it just kind of stinks for this team that you've had two crowds impacted by this, where you haven't been able to pack the house to watch this team. But on the flip side of the coin there, man, the people who have shown up, first of all, the students have been incredible. They've been turned out in droves. And the people that have been braving it and coming out to these games, man, it was loud. Like it made a serious impact. They were engaged. They were rowdy. And so the atmosphere has still been awesome. And so I think the fan base deserves a lot of credit for that. But, to go back to these home games, like the margin for error with this Arkansas team at home now is zero. None. No slip-ups. Like you had to have that A&M win, and you got it. The remaining home slate here, as I look at it, Mississippi State, Florida, Georgia, and then the regular season finale against Kentucky. In my opinion, those are all non-negotiables for Arkansas. You got to have them. They're going to have to put some work in on the road, too, down the stretch. We'll look at the big picture in a minute. But it does start with South Carolina. The Gamecocks are bad. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. I mean, they're just having a rough season. I don't mean to be disparaging there, but I mean they're the worst power conference team Arkansas has played outside of Louisville. They've got, it's a first year head coach. They're just in a rebuild. Lamont Paris, I think, is a good coach. He's just building a program. They're 8-14, 6 straight losses. They're 6-5 at home. They're 0-5 at home in SEC play. You look at some of the games that they've lost this year. To Colorado State, Dayton, Furman, George Washington, UAB, East Carolina. Like SEC teams shouldn't really be losing those games. But you look at it from Arkansas' standpoint, and you haven't won a game on the road all season, with losses at LSU and at Vanderbilt. So you can't really take anything for granted, regardless of, how good you're playing right now, or the fact that, I think Kim Pom has Arkansas as 14-point favorites on the road in this game. And to add to that, South Carolina is capable of playing good basketball. They beat Clemson, who's 10-2 and leading the ACC right now. They beat Kentucky in Rupp, and yeah, Kentucky was going through it at the time, but I mean, to go on the road and do that is still impressive. They've been competitive in games, overtime losses to Vanderbilt and Georgia. So, they've got a star player in G.G. Jackson, 2023. He was the number 1 ranked player in the class of 2023. He reclassed up, so he's a young guy, but he's doing a great job for South Carolina so far. So they've got some star power. I think that matchup has Devo written all over it. It's interesting, G.G. Jackson's 6'9", but he's a big guard. And, I remember before the Alabama game for Arkansas, I was thinking about Brandon Miller, and I was like, man, I feel like Jordan Walsh could be a good matchup for him. But they played two bigs. And so then what are you going to do in terms of your lineup? I thought maybe Anthony Black because of his length. And then Arkansas comes out and they put Devo Davis on him, who's given up like 6 inches of height. And he did a great job. And it made a lot of sense in hindsight after watching that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Devo's on G.G. Jackson. We'll see. We got some other guys, a couple shooters. Their backcourt's pretty strong. So, listen, Arkansas should cruise in this one. If you don't get over the hump on the road here, I don't know when it's going to happen. But look, it's a quad 4 games. It's not going to help you, but it's the last potential resume dinger that Arkansas could take. So you can't mess around. You got to take care of business and get the job done and finish one here on the road if you're the Hogs. But If Arkansas does take care of business, you know, they're on a bad spot there. They'd be sitting at 16-7 overall. Back to 500 in league play, that's a good place to be after starting 1-5. With just a fascinating stretch of games ahead. So I guess what are the current projections? Where does Arkansas stand? What do they need to do? I've been getting a lot of those questions. So let's take a look at it. I looked up some of the updated, bracketologies. Joe Lenardi, his latest has the Hogs as a 10 seed, playing Creighton again. I don't know how I feel about that. Trevin Brazile was such an X factor in that game with his ability to pull the big Kalkbrenner kid out of the paint. Man, without that could be a tough matchup. They've really figured some things out too. They weren't healthy for a while there. I think they lost 6 in a row, but they've been rolling again. So that would be interesting to see. Jerry Palm at CBS Sports, he has Arkansas as an 11 seed in the first 4. I'm not really sure about his methodology there. He's got Arkansas playing Kentucky. Can you play a conference foe in the first round? I don't know if the first 4, that play-in thing is different or not. I would be highly surprised to see that. But at any rate, to have Arkansas in that position, that means Palm sees them as very much on the bubble at the moment. Tristan Harkins, who does a great job, really respect his work. He has Arkansas as a 10 seed playing. Man, if you had to guess, who would you say? If like the ultimate thorn in Arkansas's side in the NCAA tournament. He has them playing North Carolina, which I think would be an interesting. I actually think Arkansas matches up pretty well against them this year, but the storylines would be unreal given some of the past there. And the last one I looked up, Dave Amon, bracket guy Dave, he's literally one of the best in the business year in and year out. He in his last update has Arkansas as an 11 seed in that first 4 play-in in Dayton against Penn State. So they're kind of hovering in, uncomfortable territory there. The bracket matrix, which is awesome. I've mentioned it before on the show. It's like a compilation of the most reputable bracketologists. It has Arkansas right now in 83 of the 88 brackets. With an average seed of 9.34, so kind of hovering on that 9-10 line right now. Went to Bart Torvik, their tourney odds page. It's got Arkansas, I think, as an average of like a 7.7 seed. Has them with a 90.3% chance of getting in. So, they're in right now. They've just been trending down. Even once they hit the struggles for a while there, Arkansas is still hanging out in that 5 to 6 range. And now you're starting to see more of those double-digit seeds, and that's when you start to think about the bubble, right? And it's like, okay, there's still work to be done here. And every one of these bracketologists does it a little bit different. Some guys project it based on where things stand currently. Some value the metrics pretty significantly. And listen, the computers love the Hogs. If you look at their team sheet right now, it's basically a snapshot of like your resume, your overall profile. It's got all the different metrics and factors they consider. Arkansas is looking pretty good. They're 27th in the net, 19th in KPI. The strength of record right now is 42. That can obviously go up because there's a lot of tough games coming up here on the horizon. They're 17th at the ESPN BPI. KenPom has them at 20. Sagarin ratings have them at 22. So, compared to maybe where they wanted to be at the beginning of the year, Arkansas is not there, but given the circumstances and the obstacles that they face with injuries and the whatnot, I think they're in pretty decent shape for the moment when it comes to making the field. I mentioned it, in the lead to the show here. February is a month that Eric Musselman has owned in the past, but it's tricky this year. Arkansas's 13-1 the last 2 years in the month of February. That's crazy. That's why Muss has a rep for getting his teams to play their best basketball, get them to peak at the right time. Their only loss in the month of February, the last 2 seasons, is a 1-point loss at Alabama last year that Muss is still talking about to this day. Like, for whatever reason, man, that one stuck with him. But, you look here, Arkansas's got 9 games left. One of them's in March, technically. The finale against Kentucky is March the 4th, but the rest of them are in February. Arkansas's 2 losses deeper right now than they have been at this time the last 2 seasons. They've been 17-5 the last 2 years. They're 15-7 now. I asked Muss about it in the presser earlier today. I was like, hey, you guys, roll in February. Like, what's the recipe for success there? And you feel like you're kind of turning the corner towards playing that kind of basketball again. And, he kind of went back to that and was like, we've lost, he said 3, but it's been 4 one-possession games, 3 of them on the road and 1 of them in Maui. It's just like 1 shot here, 1 stop there, 1 rebound, 1 less turnover, whatever. And a couple of those go your way, right? It's like Arkansas hasn't been able to catch a break in these close games. But they're really close to being right, kind of in line with where they were, but they're not, so, hey, maybe they go 9-0 the rest of the way, but I do think it's a pretty tall ask, so how much work does Arkansas need to do to be safe, in terms of March Madness? It's been pretty fun on our message board. There's been a number of these threads that are like, is there a magic number for wins? I know a lot of the computer projections are saying 20 wins, for Arkansas. Is that enough? I think it depends. Typically in a league like the SEC, you feel good about your chances if you get to that 20 win mark. In Arkansas's case this year, that would make them 9-9 in league play, which being 500 in the league, it's not like an absolute must, but it's generally like an unwritten rule for your typical resume. There can be exceptions, like if you did a lot of work in the non-conference, but usually you want to be at least 500 in your league, or unless your league is really, really strong. And I don't think the SEC qualifies, maybe like the Big 12 or people are going to get mad about this, but even like the Big 10 right now. So it'll be interesting to see, last year the league there was like a 5-way tie at the end of the regular season with teams who were 9-9 in the SEC. And it was hit or miss, man. Like LSU and Alabama both got in the tournament at 9-9, but A&M and Florida, oh man, who was the other one? South Carolina were all left out. So 2 got in and 3 were left out at 9-9. So, in my opinion, it would be more about how you got to those 20 wins or 9 in league play as opposed to just reaching that benchmark. Because I think right now, with Arkansas, because again, you look at all the metrics that I just rattled off, all their rankings and these things that matter and that, what people look at, and you kind of look at that and you go, well, how the hell are they, a 10 or 11 seed in all these brackets? Well, I think what's getting them right now is the road and quad 1 record looms pretty large. As it stands right now, Arkansas has 0 road wins. We talked about it. Arkansas also only has 1 quad 1 victory. Listen, the Razorbacks have some nice wins. Don't get me wrong. Like San Diego State, Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas A&M, those are all good wins. But only San Diego State meets that mark right now of being a quad 1. So you go and you look at the net and you dive into the numbers a little bit. Arkansas is 1-5 in quad 1 games. So if you go look at the list, St. Mary's is the only other team in the top 30 of the net that just has 1 quad 1 victory. St. Mary's and Arkansas, that's it. I mean, there's opportunity for more, 4 to be exact at the moment right now, but those are all road games where you haven't won yet. At Kentucky, at Texas A&M, at Tennessee, and at Alabama. So my point is, like, yeah, Arkansas could go 5-4 the rest of the way. They could get to 20 wins, get to 500 in conference play, but they could also be going into the postseason with a 1-8 record in true road games and a 1-9 record in quadrant 1 games. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't scream NCAA tournament to me. So, I mean, it would be very like bubblicious, right? That they might be in a situation where they have to go to Nashville and do some work in the SEC tournament. You'd like to avoid that if you can. So, and listen, the cool thing about the net is it fluctuates every day, right? We look at it every day. We drive ourselves crazy. So it's possible that, there's some games that can move up into that quad 1 category that could help Arkansas out some. And you're not just leaving those 4 road games as your only chances. Florida and Missouri, they're both in the 40s right now in the net. They'd have to be top 30 to move up to quad 1. It could happen. Kentucky, I think, is in the mid-30s right now. So if they move into the top 30, not only would that road game next week count, but the home game at the end of the season could be a quad one opportunity. Oklahoma is 58. They would need to be top 50 since it's a neutral site. So there's some opportunities there for that to fluctuate a little bit and benefit the Razorbacks. Or, and I'm just spitballing here, Arkansas could get over the hump on the road at South Carolina this weekend and then pick off, one or two of those remaining games to help themselves. It's possible. I mean, you beat Texas A&M once, you can do it again. I think it's weird that Muss has not won at Reed Arena. They're going to be tough at home. These Kentucky games, I think, are particularly interesting because, the two teams kind of have similar resumes right now. Kentucky only has one quad win also. And they both need pretty strong months to just really firmly secure their spots, and you get to play them twice. So that's fun. Bama, that's gonna be really, really tough at their place. Arkansas will definitely be highly motivated for that one. They showed some vulnerability at Oklahoma. They got spanked, but then they responded and beat Vanderbilt by like literally 60 points the other day. Tennessee on the road. Hey, Kentucky got them on the road, but that's going to be their senior day. They're filthy defensively. Is it possible? Of course it is. Arkansas can beat anybody, but it's a big ask. That's what makes college basketball awesome, though. Arkansas controls their own destiny here, and so every game, like Muss has said, and people kind of roll their eyes at this, like, oh, it's their Super Bowl. It's their Super Bowl. Well, that's kind of been the message here because their backs are against the wall a little bit, and you kind of have to play every game like it's your last. So every one of them matters. All right. What I want to do now, I want to get over into some mailbag questions and comments. Make sure we have plenty of time for those. I'm going to start on our Razor's Edge message board and then hop over to the chat as always. See what you guys want to know about. Red 1022 says, okay, I'll start it off. When will Nick Smith Jr. be back? And we got naturally a few questions about that. West Hawg 21 says, by what point do I think Nick needs to return in order for the team to get into a good rhythm before postseason play? Both great questions. In terms of when Nick will be back, well, if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably be due for a promotion, right? I asked Eric Musselman that very question today because, initially we were told the timeline was, maybe towards the end of January, they kind of reassess his situation. So, it's February now. So I said, hey, is there any update or progress with his status? Nope, no update. And so what that tells me is, he's probably still rehabbing and working on his own. In terms of when he needs to be back, I mean, Nick is the kind of talent that you take him when you can get him, right? And I 100% understand. Some people, there's like the opposite ends of the spectrum with how they feel about it in terms of, he practiced all summer. He's playing some games with the team. It'll be a seamless transition. Versus it'll take time for him to gel and everything like that. I'm probably more on the side of the latter there, only because, it has been 6 weeks since he's played, and so much of your identity is formed through those early stretches of conference play. We've talked this whole show about how Arkansas has really started to figure things out and define their roles and everything like that. And so, there will be some change. It'll take a little bit of time to adapt. For the team, but then also for Nick, just kind of getting his feet back under him. It's been a while since he's played competitive basketball. He's an ultra talent and completely changes the dynamic of what Arkansas is trying to do in terms of his ability to knock down shots, draw the attention of the other team's best defender. That makes things easier on everybody else. He's an alpha who can create his own shot. So all those things are great, but yeah, there would be an adjustment period there. But man, if that's, I don't know, 2 weekends from now or at the SEC tournament or whatever, if you can get him back, you take him whenever you can because it makes your team better. There's no question in that. And we'll see what it looks like. I think what kind of gets lost in translation here, because I know people are frustrated about it. There's not that much information that's been going around. Obviously, that's by design. But what I think gets lost sometimes in this is that we're talking about his health. Right? And so the question has never been, does Nick want to play basketball? Does Nick want to be a Razorback? Well, hell, of course he does. He said that himself. He's going at people on Twitter to say that. The dude is an ultra competitor. He wants to play. He's got to be fully healthy. He's got to be 100% before he does that. And you know, that's a timeline that you can't really, place an exact date on, because you don't know. You know, what is 100% one day, how does that change if he returns to full practice? You know, does the thing swell back up on him? Is he super sore the next day? Does he have to back off? Or does he feel fine? Can he move forward? It's just going to be kind of a step-by-step process here. And you just have to hope for the best for him, and for the team, that he gets back as soon as possible, because, yeah, obviously he'd help the team a ton. Runway 3886 says, more Mitchell brothers, please. Can you talk about their impact that they've had on the team in the month of January, and how do they compare with other bigs' performances in the SEC? Well, Mackay, he's kind of been Mr. Consistent for Arkansas, really. I mean, he's a guy who can, I think, get a near double-double for you every night if he stays out of foul trouble, which has been an issue for him at times. I love his versatility. He can play the 5. Obviously, he started at center most of the year, but he can also play the 4 in the right matchups. I mean, he started alongside his brother, in the last game, which is cool to watch, right? I think he's a great one-on-one defender and rim protector who could improve as a help defender. I think that's an area he could work on. Offensively, he's a great roll man, good in pick and roll and dribble handoff. I think they could dump it into him on the block a little bit more and be aggressive with him to score, because he's got a bag down there. He's got great footwork. He's a good finisher. He's over 60% on the season. I wish he was a little bit more aggressive to score. And, I think sometimes when Arkansas hits these droughts, you think about your big playmakers. Ricky, AB's has been a guy they've looked to go get a bucket. Devo, obviously, emerging now. Listen, it's a little bit old school, but when I was a coach, we would set up a play and dump it into the post, go one-on-one, and get a high percentage shot and knock that thing down. I think he's a guy you could do that with to snap some of those droughts. And then Mikal, yeah, like I was saying earlier, Mikal's emergence is absolutely huge for this team. When Trevin Brazile went down, I kept asking Muss about another big man stepping up, and he kept telling me, it's Jordan Walsh that's doing that. Jordan Walsh has filled that role. Which I 100% agree with that. But what I was getting at is just the need that I perceived, at least, for another big body to be in the rotation. For this very moment in the SEC, Mikal is a top-notch rim protector. He led the A-10 in block shots, and that's a good league. He's physical. He's deceptively athletic. He plays with good verticality. He was brought here to do exactly what he did against Texas A&M, and so now I think he's established himself, and we'll get to see if that translates to what's coming up in terms of post presences that Arkansas is going to face, because you look ahead, you see Oscar Tshiebwe twice. Everyone remembers the dude coming in, gobbling up rebounds, pushing off, camping in the lane. Arkansas was able to win in Fayetteville despite that, but it's going to be the same thing again. Arkansas went out and got the Twins for this very reason. So we're going to get to see that twice. Colin Castleton, a guy that's been a thorn in the Razorbacks' side for, it feels like, a decade now. He's still at Florida. They'll get to see him again. That's why the Twins are here. That's why Mikal is here. Tolu Smith from Mississippi State, another guy. It feels like he's been playing for 10 years. He's having a great season. That's why those guys are here. So I'm really anxious to see how they continue to progress over the course of the next month here, because they're really, really important to what Arkansas is trying to do, especially on the defensive end and on the backboards. Hog Papa 55 says, who comes back next year? Woo. Who knows, man? I know the staff would prefer to have more continuity next year than they do this year, so we may see more of a push for it. And pull up the roster. Nick and AB, I think it's a foregone conclusion they're gone. I mean, those guys are going to be lottery picks. Kamani's out of eligibility. But then you've got Ricky, Trevin, and Jordan Walsh, who probably all have a decision to make, right, about stay or go pro. Look, based on Arkansas's track record, it wouldn't surprise me if all three of them left. I mean, I'm not saying that will happen or that I necessarily agree with that, but that's what we've seen. I think Ricky would be a guy that you'd love to have back. But, man, he's starting to kind of climb up those draft boards again. He stagnated for a bit there, but I'm seeing some that have him late first round, early second. I mean, he's been in college for 3 years now. Like, if that's the feedback he's getting, he should go. Brazile, you could debate all day whether or not he should come back. I haven't seen him pop up on as many draft boards, so maybe. And then Walsh, I think he could probably use another year of development and work, but they can do that in the G League too. And he's such an immense talent. He's got all the, the intangibles, the measurables. There's going to be some guaranteed money there for him too. So we'll see on those three guys. With that being said, I think you do whatever it takes to try to get at least one of those guys to stick around. And then, man, you call it a grand slam if you can get anything above that. Jalen Graham, the Twins, these are guys who both have an extra year of eligibility, that COVID year. They're also older guys. Graham has played 4 years of college basketball now. The Twins just turned 23 years old the other day. So I don't think any of the three really project as like draft prospects at this stage, but it could be, kind of that JD Notte type of situation where that clock for making money, playing basketball professionally is ticking, and they might want to start that next chapter. Again, I don't know. Like, I'm just speculating and giving my thoughts here. You do have Bay Fall coming in, in the post. This guy's who's a McDonald's All-American. Like, he's going to play. If you get Brazile to come back with him, man, that would be a lot of fun to watch, those two guys. But, I'm sure they would love to keep at least one experienced guy from that mix in the front court, and then maybe you address it in the portal from there. But we'll see. The other freshmen, I hope those guys stay. I really do. I like all three of them a lot. History suggests that, at least one of them will probably dip as well. I mean, it's just I'm just going on past patterns, I don't know. West Fork Pork asked for my best guess on the first 2024 commitment. I'm not sure they're super, super close on anything just yet. Obviously the spring and summer brings those official visits and more decisions, but, a few names maybe at the top of my radar. Dink Pate would be one at the very top. Jace Richardson would be another. Hunter Boateng, a local guy. Maybe a David Castillo would be a guy to monitor there on the periphery. These are all guys who have visited at least once. Right, been to campus. It's been a long relationship, and so those would be the ones I would watch for right now. Obviously, Arkansas is in the thick of the mix with pretty much every other 5-star guy out there. I just think there's more work to be done with many of those cases, and you need to get some of those guys on campus before you can really get a good gauge of where you're at. Frank Broyles, nice, asked if 10 conference wins gets Arkansas in the tournament. Yeah, if they get to 10, that'd be 6-3 down the stretch here. 21-9 overall, but 100%. That would get him in. Razorback R says that he has a love-hate relationship with Devo, and he wants to know why. Devo's an enigma, man, and I think many feel the same way. You love the charisma, what he's done for the program, the leadership, the flair, the clutch gene, the three-point shooting now, the lockdown defense. You hate the unnecessary turnovers that become dunks on the other end, but, it's just a day in the life with Devo, who the dude has been so much fun to cover. And quite honestly, right now, he's playing at an all-SEC level. He's been terrific. This is the best basketball he's played in his career. And I got to give him a lot of credit, because he was struggling. All right, we've talked about some of the, there was a point there where he was shooting 13% from three. He was kind of bit by the turnover bug. Would have some games where he just really, wasn't making a ton of positive impact, but he has really turned it around. He's living in the gym, putting in work, and I think he understood, and maybe it took him a little bit to figure that out. Last year he was looked at as a leader, but you had some other guys who really emerged there. This year he really had to take, the bull by the horns there. And just take the reins of this basketball team, and he's done that. And I think it directly coincides with, Arkansas playing better ball now. All right, a couple more real quick, and then we'll hop over to the chat. Josh Woolley asks about sending a big man as a trapper at half court. Arkansas has been doing this lately. Like he mentions here, it worked against Baylor, maybe not so much against Texas A&M. How often should we do it? I really like that Arkansas is doing that against Baylor. Like, if you identify a matchup where there's a guy that you perceive to not be a threat, or someone that you can live with taking shots, and then you have somebody who you don't want touching the ball, go trap him. Go trap the ball out of his hands. I thought Arkansas did a really good job with that in the first half at Baylor. They had Jalen Graham on the kid number 33 from Baylor, and they didn't care if they left that guy open. So they were sending Graham to trap right across half court, and it was getting the ball out of Flagler's hands, or it was getting the ball out of Keontae George's hands, whatever, early. And you're fine with that. If they've got 3 stud guards and it's another guy who's beating you, well, shake their hand and move on. But, if you can eliminate and take one of those guys out of the game, then that's huge for you. I remember Arkansas started doing that a couple years ago. It was in that comeback win against Auburn at home, where Sharif Cooper, and the dude is just really, really hard to guard. And so Arkansas started using Justin Smith as that trapper, that shadow guy. Just bringing him off his man. I can't remember who he was playing off of, but they didn't care. They just wanted to get the ball out of Cooper's hands, and they did that. And it was a large reason why they came back and won that game. So I think it's been pretty cool to see him doing that. Looked like they tried to do it a little bit with Taylor, maybe Radford for Texas A&M. Those guys were able to split that at times, and it was doing some damage to Arkansas. So if you're going to do it, the trap has to be effective. You have to get the ball out of the dude's hands, or at the very least make him pick up his dribble. Otherwise, you're kind of running some tough situations there where they have numbers and they're able to get back on the offensive glass. They'll keep doing it. 870 Hawg 704 wants to know if I'm going to South Carolina. Unfortunately, I'm not. I'd like to get to another road game in the regular season, but I definitely will be at the SEC tournament in Nashville and wherever they go for March Madness. Dave Dove 12345 asks if I think the offense in the half court has a lot of the you take the shot, no, you take the shot, and why so many passes within 3 feet of the basket. With this team offensively right now, I think you have to understand a few things. One, I think the bigs do kick it back out too often. I know the Twins are notorious for that. They'll get a pass on a roll, or their defender will be drawn up and help, and they'll get a dump off, and it's like, hey, you could probably go hammer that thing right now, or they'll kind of kick it back out. Like, no, that's what I was talking about, maybe being a little bit more aggressive. So yeah, go finish those. I also think the guards are maybe so used to having a wall of defenders waiting on them in the lane, but just the way they've been defended, they might be looking too hard for a drop off at times instead of going up and finishing. It's an adjustment that they'll make. But, secondly, other people have asked about like the stagnant play offensively, and some of that, I think you just have to understand the nature of attacking a zone. Like, it's just more deliberate, what you don't want is just kind of standing there holding the ball over your head and watching around. But you're going to survey the situation a little bit more. You're trying to swing from side to side to get the zone moving. You have a couple cutters, but things are just a little bit more timed and deliberate, and you have to pick your spots there. So anytime a team is getting zoned, it's going to look, quote, stagnant compared to, when you're man-to-man and you're setting a ton of ball screens and different actions off the ball. In man-to-man, I think Arkansas just doesn't have a lot of pull-up shooters, so the shots don't come as often within the flow of the motion, so much as they really rely heavily on attacking ball screens, getting to the teeth of the defense and either kicking out or dropping off. And so, it does look like a lot of, two-man game or one-on-one situations, but I think it's just kind of the style of team that they have right now. Okay. Let's hop over to the comments. Jackie Price says, Woo Pig Suey. Love it. Cody L. James said, hell yeah, I need some Hawg Hoops live today. Work's been a pain. Yeah, I wanted to do it yesterday. There's so much stuff going on with the football signing day stuff. We had those press conferences and everything, so gave it an extra day. I really wanted to. I had a lot to say after that LSU game last week, but, no power. And no, I don't have a generator. A lot of people have said that to me. Like, I don't know, like, it's Fayetteville, Arkansas, man. I didn't think I needed one. I moved 5 hours south. I thought I was past that crazy winter weather, but it's been tough in Northwest Arkansas here. Zach Hall, my man, my weatherman. It's my guy Curtis is the best in the game. Love the show, brother Woo Pig. Appreciate you, man. Hope you're good out there. I'm sure you're busy. Cody L. James, hear anything lately on Holland? Nah, I mean he's still signed at Texas. The Longhorn basketball account is tweeting about him. He was at a game recently. I don't think we're going to hear anything about that, to be honest with you. It'll probably just depend on what they do with that coaching situation. I think if Rodney Terry keeps the job, he stays. I think if they hire a coach that he's content playing for, he stays. So, hey, could certainly be wrong. But, yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's any update really to be had there unless he requests out of that national letter of intent and opens things back up. And so far that hasn't happened. And we're, 2 months out, past him, Chris Beard getting arrested and then fired. So I haven't really heard much there. Cody also says, good to hear Nick is close to 100%. If he comes back, do you have any concerns about? Yeah, we kind of hit on that stuff. And again, I don't know. I guess he told Jimmy Dykes that he was 90% or something. So, yeah, we'll see. I know it's a frustrating deal for people because they want to see him out there, but I guarantee you it's more frustrating for Nick because he wants to be out there. Chemistry is probably not the word I would use so much as just kind of getting back into a flow of things. To be a natural progression there. We saw it, when he missed a few games and came back early in the season. Really, it wasn't until right before he went out again where they were starting to hit their stride. Like I thought it was that Oklahoma game, where he was 2 or 3 games in at that point where he really looked good. Now he's set out longer, at this point, and the competition is much greater. So, and things have changed in terms of what Arkansas is doing philosophically. So, maybe it'll be a little bit more of a curve for him. But, like I said, man, if you get the opportunity to get that dude back, you take it and run with it. MP Rich says, Woo Pig Suey, what did you think about the hook and hold on AB? It's whatever. I'm not too beat up about, a hook and hold call so much as I am like, man, does AB not just get like hit in the face every game? It was so funny because somebody actually asked him about that in the press conference today. And he was like, yeah, I think most of the time it's unintentional, which is probably true, but like he gets hit in the face, but it's like he's a boxer. The dude just takes a beating. I think Bob Holt said it was, he's kind of like a quarterback, taking hits in the backfield. So I would like to see some of those called a little bit more, like if we're going to call touch fouls on Jordan Walsh on one end of the floor, if AB's catching a right hook, maybe we can at least send him to the free throw line, it's nuts. West Glass says it's just an injury year for all the Hogs teams. Yeah, man, it's been tough. Jonathan Parker says, maybe just me, but it seems like most of the bad calls are from the ref furthest from the play, and not the ref right at the play. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that angle of it. I'll try to pay attention to that on Saturday. It's a little bit easier, watching on TV on the screen. You can stop and kind of go back, in the moment, like in Bud Walton and stuff. It's a little bit harder to get a gauge for that. Jared Poe says NSJ versus Kentucky or Mississippi State. I don't know, man. I mean, anybody's guess is good. He, depending on who you ask, right? And these people who are putting stuff out there, it's like, he was going to come back from Missouri and then Ole Miss and then LSU and then Texas A&M and, now this weekend and then Kentucky or Mississippi State. It's eventually someone will be right. But, whenever he's healthy, and like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a process. And so to me, if you're really concerned about this knee, to the point of, having him sit out for 6 weeks like he has, I'd be pretty surprised if that meant that he just practiced like once or twice and then was thrown back to the fire. That would seem like it would kind of defeat the purpose to me. But I say that with also knowing that I'm not privy to knowing anything that he's been doing. I don't know what his rehabs consisted of, his treatment, his individual workouts. Like I have no idea, how far along he is. In terms of conditioning and strengthening and the dynamic activities he's doing. So it's impossible to say. I would be really happy if and when he gets back out there, just like everybody else. Tim Eskew says, it's somewhat interesting to me that our size allowed us to block several shots the other night, but our size didn't prevent Texas A&M from getting a ton of offensive rebounds. Yes, rebounding doesn't require size necessarily, but it's still an odd contrasting statistic. Let me tackle this one first. I agree with that. I think some of it is if you're blocking a shot, then you're automatically not in position to rebound, right? Like it's really tough if I'm Mikal Mitchell to contest a shot at the rim and then, turn around and get boxed out in time. And so I think that, like Coleman, for example, I think some of his rebounds came from that, like a miss, and he's got his defender off his feet and he's able to get that second jump and get a tip or secure that thing back. So I think that's some of it. It's weird. Arkansas's been a great defensive rebounding team all year. They've really kept teams off the offensive glass, like at an elite level, like top 25 in the country. They gave up probably too many against LSU. They gave up a lot against Baylor and a lot against Texas A&M. Now, both of those last two teams are really good offensive rebounding teams, but certainly defensive rebounding is something they got to work on because, man, I mean, it's like I said, Oscar Tshiebwe, you got to see that dude twice. He'll get 15 offensive rebounds by himself. So it's definitely an area that they're going to need to work on here. Landon Montgomery says, lost you. Where'd you go, Landon? There you are. We have a real chance to win 7 straight. Need to get past Kentucky on the road. Yeah. I mean, again, it's going to be tough sledding. It's hard for me right now to look at it, when they haven't won a road game and say, oh, yeah, they're going to go beat this team and that team on the road. And, I think getting over the hump against South Carolina will help. But, yeah, that game at Rupp is huge. Like, they can absolutely go to Rupp and beat Kentucky. They can absolutely go to College Station and beat Texas A&M. They're more than capable of doing that. Will they? Yeah, we'll see. Lennon also says, what chances do you see Muss potentially being on the move in the offseason? I don't like that Texas has still not found their coach. They're going to come calling. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens. Boy, I'd just be really shocked if if Arkansas didn't make it very much worth Eric's while to stay. I think he understands what he's got here. Think about the last couple games here. We talked about it earlier. Like, they've been snowed in. You've had these huge crowds that have made an impact on the game. He's gone out of his way to recognize that. Talk about the best student section in America. Praise the crowd for what they've done. Like, he realizes he's got a really good thing here. Do I think he's going to stay at Arkansas for 25 years and retire? I don't know if I go that far, but I don't know that that he's really compelled to leave right now unless somebody just gives him a crazy offer that he can't refuse. Let's see. Some more chat about that. We talked about the freshmen a little bit. Transfer or come back. Who knows? I hope they all come back, but Gil McGarity says, Curtis, do you have any eligibility? The Hogs may need you. You're one guy that saw me back in the day playing a little bit. I can't play in the SEC, man. I will tell you this, though. Our media group, my guys that I work with, colleagues, up until the last couple of weeks, it was an abnormally warm January. We got out and mixed it up, man. We had like a media 4-on-4, maybe it was even 5-on-5. We had quite a few guys out there playing ball, and it was a lot of fun. We need a lot of work because we were gassed, man, but it was a blast. Chris Corley says, what specifically qualifies for the one-and-done rule? Playing in a certain number of games, just enrolled for a year, and has he fulfilled his one-and-done if he plays no more? Nick, that is. Yeah. I mean, he's good to go. If he wanted to go to the draft, like, if you can commit to a college and not play at all, if you're a year removed, you can go. So, from that standpoint, he can do whatever he needs to do there. Okay. I think I got through most of them here. Fair enough. We've gone for an hour. I think that's probably about right. Good show. Like I said, and I apologize for not being on last week, but it was good to get back on here and chat with everybody again. Like I always say, you guys drive the show, that the interaction, the questions, that's my favorite part of it, so continue to do that. Appreciate you guys listening and tuning in as always. Arkansas and South Carolina, that is on Saturday. It's in Columbia, South Carolina. It's at 2:30 Central Time. SEC Network, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But then Tuesday, at Rupp Arena, that's going to be a big one. Can the Hogs pick off a couple road wins? They need to. And we'll hop back on here on Wednesday for a show and see where they're at after all that. But this has been Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com. Again, appreciate you guys, and we will catch you next time.